Do you know a place where time bends? A place you must never be past 6:10 p.m. A reason you must never approach cell block D on a Thursday. You might think such a place doesn't exist. I thought so too, just 3 weeks ago. But now, my hands tremble, and I can't sleep for more than 2 hours without sleeping pills. Because every night, they come for me. Don't know? Then you should stop listening to this story right now. Because once you know these rules, you'll be in the same position as me. And you'll be forced to make a choice, break the rules to save someone, or choose your own safety and abandon them. My name is Michael Harrison. 3 weeks ago, I broke all the rules of Silverwood's penitentiary to save Dr. Benjamin Zorinsky. The result is this. Every night at 2:47 a.m., tall shadows appear beneath my apartment window. They walk, dragging chains, sometimes looking up at me and waving. It all began 3 weeks ago, during the worst period of my life. I lost my job, my girlfriend left me, and my mother died from an illness. All I had left was student loan debt, and after sending dozens of resumes, I only received one reply, an acceptance letter from Silverwood's penitentiary. The salary was 3 times my previous one. It was enough to make me suspicious, as it was a small prison in a remote town no one had ever heard of. But I had no choice. I don't even remember applying, but it must have been one of the many applications I sent in the deep darkness of my depression. On Monday morning, I was driving to start a new life. Before I left, I checked the map, and the town of Silverwoods didn't exist. It didn't show up on GPS either, but the acceptance letter clearly stated the address. Feeling uneasy, I entered the address into the GPS, and suddenly a route appeared. On Monday morning, I was driving to start a new life. The GPS said it was a 10-minute drive, but in 5 minutes, I was lost in a forest. The road was dilapidated, with dangerous sharp curves. The strangest thing was the time. I had left at dusk, but during the short drive, night deepened. It was as if time was moving backward. I arrived after 7 p.m. and checked my watch to apologize for being late. I had arrived 10 minutes early. I could see the courtyard from the main gate, but it was empty. A strange desolation enveloped me, but I told myself it was just first-day jitters. Silverwood's Penitentiary was an old building constructed in the 19th century. Its stone walls were covered in moss, and the iron bars on the windows were rusted. Yet, strangely, something about the entire building exuded newness, as if it were rebuilt every day. At the reception, a mountain of a man sat, creaking in his chair. His name tag read, Herbert Johnson. He was reading a book upside down. Seeing my confused face, he looked up from his reading and called a thin man.
Howard, show the new guy around.
The man, who introduced himself as Howard Banks, shook my hand.
You're the new one, are you? Fourth one this term.
He smiled at my apology for being late.
Everyone is. Don't worry. Did you read the Zorinsky protocol documents?
What documents?
Never mind. Not that important.
Howard led me down an endless corridor. There were no staff or prisoners anywhere.
I feel sorry for your predicament. Everyone who works under Dr. Zorinsky ends up quitting. No one knows why, though.
He spoke as if he were telling an amusing joke. Down the corridor, a doctor walking while looking at a chart was Zorinsky. When Howard called out, he looked up and saw us. Benjamin Zorinsky was a man in his early 50s, looking utterly exhausted. His salt and pepper hair was disheveled, and his white coat had old blood stains. But what was most striking were his eyes. They held a mix of deep sadness and strong determination for something.
Who's the kid?
Your personal guard. After the last incident, you're not allowed to wander alone.
Zurinsky shrugged.
Suit yourself. Follow me.
We headed to cell block D. It had a capacity for 40 people, but all the cells were empty. Yet, the beds were disheveled and personal belongings were scattered. Where is everyone?
The courtyard. I want to do my rounds quietly. Only patients remain inside.
But I didn't see anyone when I passed the courtyard.
Ah, you need to get used to it. You can't see the courtyard from outside, only from inside.
I tried to peek into the courtyard from the window. It certainly looked empty. However, when Zurinsky stood next to me, dozens of prisoners suddenly appeared in the courtyard. They were sitting in a circle, seemingly listening to someone. What in the...
Reality follows the rules of this place. Your eyes follow the rules of the outside world. You'll see it once you get used to it.
When I looked at the window alone again, the courtyard was empty once more. It seemed that reality adhered to the unique rules of this place. It was a phenomenon that defied explanation. The infirmary was a modern facility with 8 beds. Zurinsky sat me down in an old wooden chair, one of its legs broken.
Wait here while I examine a few patients and clear some paperwork.
As I entered the infirmary, I noticed something else mixed with the smell of disinfectant. A sweet, slightly decaying odor. 2 nurses were working, both looking utterly exhausted. One was a woman in her 30s, the other a man in his 60s. Strangely, they never exchanged a single word, as if they couldn't see each other. I sat in the chair and tried to open the internet on my smartphone. No signal. Not a single bar. Soon, Zurinsky called out to me.
All right, let's go.
Are you done already? That was fast.
Fast. 3 hours have passed.
I checked my smartphone, and indeed, 3 hours had gone by. While I stared at the clock, my sense of time had completely vanished. Zurinsky noticed my confusion and laughed.
Don't worry, it happens often here. Time doesn't follow the clock.
We headed to a special cell at the back of the cell block. Unlike the others, it was surrounded by solid walls instead of iron bars. It was cell number 144. The door to cell 144 was made of thick iron, with only a small observation window. Strange symbols were carved around the door, giving me a headache just by looking at them. The symbols were arranged in a consistent pattern, like some kind of seal.
This patient won't attack me. Wait outside until I call you.
As Zurinsky went inside, I could hear a conversation through the wall.
Good morning, Harold. How are you doing?
Who are you? Where's my doctor?
I'm your doctor. I've been doing rounds every day for 10 years.
Silence followed, the sound of something being written on paper.
I shouldn't be here. I didn't do anything wrong,
You killed someone, Harold.
but that was my right. She broke into my house in the middle of the night.
She was your wife.
Yes, she said so too. Same voice. But it wasn't her.
Zurinsky sighed.
There's nothing I can do until you understand what you did.
Peeking through the small window in the door, I saw Zurinsky changing the bandage on the patient's head. A few minutes later, he came out. What's wrong with that person?
Prosopagnosia. Face blindness. He can't even recognize his own wife's face. So he killed her.
A complex mix of sadness and anger welled up inside me.
He didn't understand what he was doing. He thought she was an intruder. The insanity plea was accepted, but he was sent here not for killing his wife, but for what happened afterward.
Afterward,
When he looked in the mirror in the bathroom, a stranger was staring back. So he tried to peel off his own face with a kitchen knife. He cut off his scalp and tried to remove his eyeballs. Fortunately, the police arrived after a neighbor reported him, and he only lost one eye.
I shivered.
Among the horrors you'll see here, that's the mildest. Do you really want to work here?
I have no choice. Besides, I have a name.
I'll call you by your name if you last a week.
On the way back to the infirmary, I noticed that one of the cells was sealed off with a quarantine plastic sheet. It wasn't sealed when we passed by earlier.
Ah, that's cell 89. It happens sometimes.
As I approached cell 89, a faint light leaked from beyond the plastic sheet. It wasn't the light of an ordinary lamp. It was a pale, pulsating light. When I put my hand near the sheet, I felt a sensation like static electricity. What do you mean? It happens sometimes.
Some days it's quarantined, some days it isn't. I can't explain it, and I don't want to. People who get curious tend to disappear. That's how you got this job.
He spoke as if it were an everyday occurrence he had been accustomed to for years. Like the distortion of time, it seemed perfectly normal to him. I spent the day in the infirmary, waiting for Zorinsky to finish his paperwork.
Time to go home. Make sure you're out before 6:10 p.m.
Why? Because the prison locks up.
No, you'll physically be unable to leave. I've experienced it several times. It's the worst feeling.
He shrugged and packed up his briefcase.
Prepare for tomorrow. It'll be much stranger than today.
On the way home, I looked back at the prison in my car's mirror and saw several figures in the building's windows. But it should have been uninhabited when I arrived. The shadows were staring at my car. One of the shadows waved. Needless to say, I sent out a few more resumes that night. But for now, I have no choice but to continue working at Silverwood's penitentiary. The next day, I headed to the prison earlier than usual. But once again, I was at the mercy of time. Herbert, without even looking up from his book, said,
"You're late, rookie."
"What are you talking about? I should be 5 minutes early." I checked my smartphone, and I was an hour late. Time had passed again without my knowing.
Strange things happen in this prison. That's why I sit near the door.
What's different about being near the door?
You can see the exit. You can escape anytime. This place tries to swallow people. Be careful, rookie. This place wants you.
I hurried to the infirmary, where Zorinsky was still working on paperwork. "Doctor, I'm sorry. The time."
I know. It happens sometimes. Nothing you can do about it. Don't worry. Actually, you're just in time. I need your help with the patients in the basement.
There are patients in the basement?
Yes, the unconscious ones, to be precise.
The stairs to the basement were narrow, roughly dug tunnels. The walls were bedrock from a mountainous region, dimly lit by bare bulbs hanging from the ceiling. The basement was vast, with rows of beds filling the entire room. Frail patients stood beside each bed, with tubes hanging from empty 4 bags. Not a single person moved. All of them faced the same direction, just standing. "What is this?" I blurted out.
Change their 4 bags and put them back in bed. They get up a few times a week.
Zorinsky took a medical bag from the refrigerator. The patient's feet were swollen from standing for so long, and varicose veins ran all over their legs. I waved my hand in front of one, but there was no reaction at all. Hesitantly, I touched his shoulder. His skin was cold and hard like marble, but he was definitely alive. I could feel a faint pulse. I waved my hand in front of one, but there was no reaction at all. What happened to them?
I don't know. They've been here since I started working. Sometimes one disappears, and a new person is found wandering the prison.
Where do they come from?
Various places. Missing persons, suicides, accidental deaths. They have one thing in common. They all died with deep regret.
Seeing my fear-stricken face, he added,
Don't worry. They're completely harmless.
Upon closer inspection, they were indeed alive. Their chests moved, and their breath was visible, as if they were cold. We changed the 4 bags of 34 patients and put them all back in bed. Why don't you tie them down?
They don't like it. They struggle, and the ropes cut into their skin. I tried it once, but I don't want to clean up blood anymore.
After putting them back in bed, Zorinsky wrapped compression bandages around their legs.
For blood circulation.
Then he counted.
30, 31, hey, 3 are missing.
Didn't you say they sometimes disappear?
Yes, but not multiple at once. We'll have to search the prison. Be prepared, it might be a gruesome sight.
We rushed up to cell block D. We found the first patient quickly. An old woman, looking as ancient as a dead tree, had her arm embedded in the wall. She hadn't broken through it. She had fused with it. As I got closer, the boundary between the woman's arm and the wall was blurred. Her skin had turned to stone, and her veins had integrated with the cracks in the wall. Stone dust crumbled from her fingertips. When I put my ear to the wall, I could faintly hear a heartbeat. Not just the woman's, but the wall itself seemed to pulsate.
It's happening again.
Zorinsky said.
Lou, watch her here. I'll be back with tools in 5 minutes. Don't take your eyes off her. If you do, she'll move deeper into the wall.
He ran off, and I stood speechless. The woman, like the basement patients, didn't seem to care that her arm was fused with the wall. I tried to obey the order and keep my eyes on her, but footsteps echoed from behind me. The sound was like someone walking in wet shoes, approaching while dripping water on the floor. The footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing louder with each step. A strange guttural breathing sound was mixed in. Dr. Zorinsky? There was no reply. The sound grew louder, and the eerie breathing intensified. I couldn't stand it and turned around, but of course, there was nothing. As I stared at the empty corridor, I forgot about the woman. When I checked on her again, her head had fused into the wall along with her arm. The part that was still outside was convulsing. Not knowing what to do, I tried to pull her out, but it was useless. Zorinsky returned with a hammer and a drill.
What happened?
I tried to explain, but the words wouldn't form.
Get out of the way.
He started hitting the wall with the hammer. It took over a minute to break it, but when he finally breached the wall, the woman was gone. Inside the wall was a hollow space, containing old bone fragments and rotting scraps of cloth. There were bloodstains, but they weren't fresh. They looked decades old. I sank to the floor in despair. It was my fault she died.
Explain what happened.
In confused words, I described the sounds I had heard, but even I couldn't understand what I was saying. But Zorinsky showed understanding.
It's not your fault. Sometimes strange sounds are heard, usually not good ones. Your safety is paramount. That's the first rule of survival here.
Have you had similar experiences?
Many times. In the beginning, I lost a lot trying to help patients. As a result, I put more people at risk. Sometimes abandoning them is the best choice.
What should I do now?
Go home, have a beer, and do the same thing again tomorrow. This place is terrible, but as long as you listen to me, you're safe. I promise.
After a nearly sleepless night, I arrived earlier than usual. Zorinsky and Howard were having breakfast together. What's happening today?
An unscheduled prisoner transfer.
Howard replied.
I don't know where from, but a bus will arrive soon and bring some prisoners. Everyone needs to be examined.
Are unscheduled transfers a thing?
Sometimes. They send patients from other facilities that they can't handle. Usually, they're special cases.
Zorinsky was drinking coffee while reading a 2-week-old newspaper. completely ignoring my presence. The phone rang. Zurinsky nodded a few times and hung up.
All right, 3 new prisoners are arriving, all special types. It's going to take a while.
Special like Harold and the people in the basement?
Exactly.
Zurinsky replied. A few minutes later, a security guard I'd never seen before came pushing a wheelchair. Sitting in it was a small, utterly broken human. It was difficult to determine its gender, and I even doubted if it could be classified as human. It was just a bare torso with a head, no arms or legs. It had no hair, and there were no navel or nipples on its torso.
What in the world is that?
Howard asked.
Quiet.
Zurinsky barked.
They're human. Show some respect.
Zurinsky whispered to the guard and received a patient chart.
Take it to the examination room.
He told me. Pushing the wheelchair, I felt a complex mix of fear and pity. The thought of what could have happened to this creature made my skin crawl. I considered introducing myself, but it had no ears to hear or eyes to see. Its entire body had burns, which were healing, but the scars were uneven. Doctor, is this person aware of their surroundings?
Highly unlikely, but I've seen stranger things. Be polite.
Should I introduce myself?
Howard interjected, waving his hand.
Wait outside. If you don't leave now, you'll be sitting in the same wheelchair.
Zurinsky said, clearly annoyed. The creature squirmed during the examination, letting out pained screams. Its tongue was nothing more than a scrap of flesh, located in the center of its mouth. After the examination, Howard took him to cell block B. Zurinsky looked at a list on his desk and frowned slightly.
I have doubts about the next patient. I think it's going to be difficult. Be ready.
The next patient was a muscular man in his early 40s. His body was slack, but he was breathing.
Is he sedated?
Zurinsky asked the guard.
God only knows. He's been like this since we found him a few months ago. Transfer orders came, so he's your problem now.
Zurinsky sighed.
Muscle atrophy is definitely happening. He's going to be a nuisance, no doubt.
The man was huge. His physique was like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime, and he was as tall as a giant tree. Despite being in a deep sleep, his appearance alone terrified me. I put my hand on my taser. I wished I had been given a real weapon. Zurinsky approached the new prisoner cautiously, placing his stethoscope on his chest. He touched him lightly at first, then began examining the patient with more confidence. As the examination progressed, I relaxed my vigilant hand. I expected it to end peacefully, like the previous patient. I took out my smartphone and tried to check social media for any messages. I had completely forgotten about the lack of signal. That was a big mistake. As always, time slipped away. This time it was only a few minutes, but it was enough for the man to regain consciousness and attack Zurinsky. The moment he woke up, the man's eyes suddenly opened. They weren't human eyes. They were completely black, like abysses that reflected no light. And then, the man was strangling Zurinsky.
Help,
He gasped, his voice choked. I precisely drew my taser and pulled the trigger. There was only one shot, and it hit the man's forehead. He clearly felt pain, but kept his hands around Zurinsky's neck. I had no choice but to hit him with my baton. I aimed for his head, but it felt like hitting a rock. The man turned to face me and stared with those black eyes. At that moment, a voice echoed in my head.
You too will be an experiment.
It was enough to make him release Zurinsky, but now his attention was on me. The timing of the attack was perfect, and Howard returned to assist me. He jumped on the prisoner's back and locked his arms. I also helped, and somehow, we managed to secure the prisoner in the wheelchair. Howard immediately injected a needle into his neck, and in a few seconds, the sedative took effect.
Doctor, are you all right?
Howard asked, tense. Zurinsky lay on the floor, gasping for breath, clutching his throat.
Just a crushed windpipe.
After securing the prisoner, we handed him over to a guard working in an unrelated cell block. The man was asleep again, but occasionally mumbled something in his mouth, like a string of numbers.
Damn it, bring the last one.
Zurinsky said. The third patient seemed perfectly normal. He was a little frail, but politely greeted Zurinsky and introduced himself as Patrick Davis. Patrick Davis was a man in his mid-40s, giving an intellectual impression. His graying hair was neatly combed, and his clothes were clean. But what was most striking were his eyes. They were a deep blue, as if they could see through time itself. When he smiled, his smile was too perfect, a calculated expression as if he had practiced it for years.
I'll take your vitals and blood. Any issues?
None at all, Doctor. In fact, I can assure you I am in excellent health.
Davis's accent was very peculiar.
Very well. Then I'll take your vitals and blood.
As you wish. However, my stay will be quite short.
According to this, you're scheduled to be incarcerated here for 30 years.
Howard interjected. Davis looked at Howard for a moment and smiled.
You have an excellent watch, Mr. Banks. May I borrow it?
The watch was hidden under his sweater, making it impossible for Davis to see it. Howard was clearly shocked. He hadn't even introduced himself. Howard remained silent.
If you feel like it, stop by my cell and deliver it. No need to act tough in front of your colleague.
At that moment, Zurinsky interrupted to continue the examination. Howard and I exchanged worried glances.
You're a good doctor,
Davis said.
I'm sorry about your wife. She was truly beautiful.
Shut your mouth.
Zurinsky roared. Silence filled the room. Zurinsky took several deep breaths to compose himself. It was clear that Davis's words had reopened old wounds for him.
He's fine. Take him to cell block set and have the guards find him an appropriate cell.
Zurinsky, I meant no harm. It's clearly not your fault.
Shut your mouth, or do you want me to shut it for you?
Howard and I hurried out of the room with Davis. His abilities were strange, but he seemed more normal than the other patients. During the transfer, Davis looked around with interest, almost as if he were visiting an old friend's house, with a sense of familiarity.
What was that about Zurinsky's wife?
Howard ventured to ask.
None of your concern.
Davis replied.
Give me your watch, and I'll tell you a prophecy.
Howard hesitated.
It's only worth a few dollars.
Half from morbid curiosity, half from fear, Howard handed over the watch.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Here's your prophecy. Tomorrow is Thursday. As you know, that day, cell block D is not yours.
How did you know that?
Howard exclaimed, confused. I was speechless too.
The owners are very fond of me. I ask both of you not to interfere. No violence is necessary.
Are you going to escape? I asked.
No. They'll take me into their domain.
Before I could ask any more questions, a guard grabbed Davis's arm and ordered us not to speak to him. The guard led Davis to cell block C and waved us away. Remember, everyone, don't go near cell block D tomorrow. Then everything will go smoothly. However, Dr. Zurinsky's time is borrowed. As we left, Davis yelled from his cell. As we prepared to leave, no one said a word. Davis seemed like a normal man, but after everything I had seen, he somehow had a sharp ability to evoke fear from a deep, dark place in my soul. Something felt very wrong. I apologize for not being able to post yesterday. It was supposed to be a daily update, but I was trapped in the prison all night. I tried to contact the outside world, but in addition to the terrible signal, something kept deleting my messages. Zurinsky is currently missing. and no one seems to even know he existed. If anyone has answers, it would be Davis, but he has also vanished. There's so much to process, but I'll do my best to explain what happened in the missing time. On Thursday morning, when I arrived at the prison, Herbert should have been at the reception as usual, but his book was on the chair, and inexplicably, he had left his post. The atmosphere in the prison was distinctly different. In addition to the usual oppressive feeling, there was a sense of anticipation, as if something was waiting to begin. Around Herbert's chair at the reception, something like white petals were scattered, but on closer inspection, they were not petals but old scraps of paper. Something had been written on them, but the letters were too faint to be legible. The anxiety that had stemmed from Davis's words the previous day swelled in my chest. Waves of unease slowly demanded my attention. Hoping to find a colleague, I hurried to the infirmary. Upon arrival, I witnessed Herbert violently slapping Zorinsky.
"Wake up, you bastard."
He yelled, giving Zorinsky another red cheek. The sight of a mountain of a man slapping someone half his size was terrifying, and honestly, I wasn't sure whether to intervene or leave them alone. Zorinsky stood in the middle of the infirmary, looking even frailer than a patient, with an empty gaze. What's going on?
This stubborn idiot stayed past his shift yesterday and is now frozen like this.
Herbert saw the fear on my face.
Don't worry, rookie. It's not the first time this good doctor has gotten like this.
He delivered another powerful slap, and suddenly Zorinsky gasped violently, snapping back to himself and collapsing onto the floor.
Someone should have caught him.
Herbert said. They carried Zorinsky to a small guest room in the middle of the prison. It was incredibly old, covered in an unbelievably thick layer of dust, as if no one had ever lived there. But Herbert said Zorinsky would rather die than wake up in the infirmary like a cursed prisoner. My job, as usual, was to watch over him. At that point, it seemed like a meaningless task, but I obediently followed orders and patiently waited for him to regain consciousness. It took 3 hours for Zorinsky to wake up again. As soon as he saw me, he began to babble incoherently in a strange language I had never heard.
Davis, I need to talk to Davis.
He stumbled to his feet, but, as usual, refused my help. We rushed to cell block set, where Davis had been housed the previous day.
I need to speak to prisoner number 1597, Patrick Davis.
Zorinsky demanded of the guard on duty. The guard gave Zorinsky a dull stare.
Sir, that request requires proper paperwork.
Listen, you idiotic scale boy, I'm one of the few senior staff members left here.
Zorinsky said, handing over his identification. The guard apologized and led us to the service station. As he entered information into the computer, a progressively confused expression appeared on his face. Peering over his shoulder at the computer screen, I saw that the entire database was blank. All prisoner records that had been there yesterday were gone, as if the prison were empty.
Doctor, there's no record of Patrick Davis.
Zorinsky just sighed.
Then take me to cell 233.
The guard complied and led us to the cell block. The cell Zorinsky requested was bricked up, clearly sealed off for a long time. Yet, I remembered Davis being housed there yesterday. What happened here?
I don't know, sir. It's been like this for over a year since I started working.
At that point, Zorinsky clearly gave up on getting any useful information from the guard and headed to his office in the infirmary, frustrated and defeated. I walked a few paces behind to avoid being the focus of his frustration. Upon reaching his office, he rummaged through a bottom drawer and pulled out a half-empty bottle of whiskey. The bottle's label was too old to read, and the contents were closer to black than amber.
On a day like this is the best. Sit down.
Doctor, is this really the best idea?
If you've seen what happens here, it's the only right idea.
He filled 2 glasses, downed his own in one gulp, then generously poured himself another. The whiskey didn't smell normal. It had a sort of herbal, old medicine scent.
Why are you still here?
It was a simple question, but I couldn't find a logical explanation. There was nothing left in my life worth staying for. No family, no close friends, no lover. My life was over, and this job was all I had left. I have nowhere to go.
That's a good reason.
He raised his glass. Cheers. We sat there, slowly working our way through the bottle. My consumption was minuscule compared to Zorinsky, who looked like a seasoned alcoholic. After what seemed like an eternity, Zorinsky finally broke the awkward silence.
My wife was always good at this sort of thing. She worked here too. But she was a doctor, a great doctor. She loved her patients and did everything she could to help them. Much better than me.
What happened?
She got sick. It's always like that. The good ones always get a chance to die, while the best ones perish for no good reason.
He took a large swig of liquor.
I tried to save her too. Lost my medical license in the process. That's how I ended up here. Only place that would hire someone like me.
I'm sorry.
But I'm glad I came here. It was the only way to save her.
Is your wife still alive?
Of course. What do you take me for? But she's not exactly.
Zorinsky was interrupted as the overhead lights began to flicker, and a metallic clicking sound was heard. It was only for a moment, but after the lights stabilized, there was an immediate change in Zorinsky's demeanor. He was terrified. In my short tenure at Silverwood's Penitentiary, I had seen Zorinsky display a wide range of emotions: anger, frustration, hatred, but fear was new. A chill ran down my spine. Zorinsky looked up at the clock on the wall, and I checked too. 8:55 p.m. Another significant passage of time, the largest I had experienced yet. Dr. Zorinsky, I need to check the exit. This shouldn't be happening. He stumbled drunkenly out of his chair and began to run towards the door. To my surprise, Herbert was still in his chair, but his back was turned to us. As we approached,
Herbert,
Zorinsky yelled. There was no response. I cautiously tapped his shoulder and spun the chair around. I recoiled in shock, realizing his entire face was missing. Not ripped or wounded. His entire head was covered in smooth skin, untouched and pristine. Herbert was dead, sitting in his chair with his beloved book. Zorinsky pulled me away, telling me not to touch him before checking the exit. It was utter darkness, but not from a lack of light. It was filled with a viscous mist that consumed everything beyond the door. The darkness was deeper than the coldest night, like Vanta Black. What in the world is going on?
We're trapped.
Both of us froze before the darkness, unable to come up with any rational idea of what to do next. We didn't have to wait long. A simple but terrifying sound emerging from the depths of cell block D, someone humming, pulled us back to reality with a surge of panic and despair. It wasn't an ominous hum, but as innocent as someone with a song stuck in their head going about their day. Yet, its very innocence was terrifying. It had an eerie quality, like a child playing at a murder scene. The melody of the humming was ancient, like a 19th century lullaby, but within the wordless tune, words occasionally mixed in. In Old English, it seemed to sing of love.
Let's barricade ourselves in the office,
Zorinsky said, regaining a faint measure of confidence in his voice. On the way, I kept looking for any sign of the night staff. Howard should have been on duty, but he was nowhere to be found. As we walked down the corridor, I noticed the pictures on the walls had reappeared, but this time they were different. The people in the pictures were dressed in 19th century clothing, and all of them were smiling, as if welcoming us. The dark, viscous mist that had swallowed the outside world also separated us from the other cell blocks. All that remained of our small, terrifying world was the infirmary and cell block D. According to protocol, you never enter cell block D on a Thursday. What do we do now? I asked upon reaching the office.
I don't know. I guess we just wait.
Herbert is dead.
If that's really him in that chair. You can't tell in this place.
We had no choice but to wait. For what seemed like hours, we said nothing, just continuing to listen to the ominous humming. The windows reflected nothing but void, an endless expanse of perpetual darkness. We were trapped, like prisoners, unfortunate employees. After a few minutes, the lights began to flicker again. After several minutes of flashing, a loud shattering sound echoed throughout the corridor, followed by darkness. The power was out.
Damn it. The emergency generator should have kicked in by now.
Zorinsky said a few minutes later. He fumbled in the darkness and pulled out several flashlights from a cupboard. They were just enough to faintly illuminate the room. As the lights died, the black mist began to seep through the windows. The flashlights halted the spread of darkness but were insufficient to pierce the mist.
Check the corridor.
Zorinsky demanded. Like the windows, the mist that separated us from the rest of the prison was starting to spread towards us from the corridor. A few flashlights wouldn't last long before it swallowed us.
I'm going to start the generator.
I recalled seeing the generator room on my first day, but the only way to get there was through cell block D, which was strictly off limits on Thursdays. But doctor,
I know the risk. That's why you stay here. Keep the flashlight on those shadows. It'll slow them down.
Zorinsky hurried towards the cursed cell block, and I obediently stayed behind, counting every second as I waited for his return. The darkness continued to creep towards me, barely held back by my light. As time passed, the prison seemed to shrink, enveloped by the blind void of nothingness. Heavy footsteps echoed from cell block D in the distance. At first, I thought they were Zorinsky's, but they kept multiplying. First one, then two, then four, and then a truly inexplicable multitude of heavy footsteps were running around. I waited longer than I should have. I was frozen in a mixture of confusion and terror. I hadn't realized that time itself wasn't actually moving until I noticed all the clocks had stopped. For all I knew, I had experienced a lapse in time, and Zorinsky could have been dead hours ago. The darkness was close enough to touch me, and in a final act of desperation, I bolted into the corridor. The void swallowed the office. The flashlight no longer had any effect against it. It rapidly engulfed everything in its path, leaving me no choice but to venture into cell block D. The lights flickered for a moment, and a loud electrical buzzing sound resonated throughout the corridor, followed by all the light bulbs in the building shattering into pieces and raining down on me. The humming temporarily stopped, but quickly returned louder than before. Zorinsky had turned on the generator and destroyed the lights. But now he was in danger too. With a sudden surge of unknown courage, and fully expecting both of us to meet a horrifying end, I rushed towards the cell block, hoping I could help Zorinsky in some small way. I kept running. The cell block didn't appear around the corners it should have. Twists and turns in the corridor that hadn't existed before impeded my progress, throwing me into an endless loop. The humming continued to grow louder, and I could distinguish two different sources. One was darker than the other, impossibly vibrating the air, and the other was familiar, but I couldn't precisely identify it. Gasping for breath, on the verge of collapse, and probably out of time, I arrived at the cell block. To my surprise, the man humming was Patrick Davis himself, the prisoner who had inexplicably escaped and whose existence and official records had suddenly vanished. Around him, Dozens of tall, shadowy creatures walked the corridor with heavy chains attached to their ankles. In front of Davis, a furiously glowing rift hung in the air. Davis was staring at a wristwatch, the one he had obtained from Howard, and seemed to be synchronizing his humming to the clock. With each hum, something else returned from the previous rift portal. Zirinsky was standing there too. Dr. Zirinsky. Both of them looked at me, and a wide smile appeared on Davis's face.
I'm sorry, but the doctor is coming with me.
I tried to approach, but the shadowy creatures blocked my path. Zirinsky, what are you doing?
Stand back. This has to happen.
What are you talking about?
He told me if I helped him, he would take me to my wife.
Please stop, I pleaded.
There's no other reason to stay.
As I took a step closer, one of the shadows knelt before me, opening its mouth impossibly wide, and black mist streamed out from within. Davis gestured for the creature to stop.
If you stand back, I won't harm you.
Davis said.
Unfortunately, you'll be left behind, but I now know Zirinsky was right about you.
What do you mean?
That you're important for the future.
Davis said.
You just need to wait patiently.
He turned to Zirinsky and nodded.
It's time to go, Doctor.
Zirinsky gave me one last glance, then both of them stepped into the rift. Both of them vanished before my eyes. That's all I remember until Howard dumped a bucket of ice water on me, and I woke up on the floor.
Hey, what the hell happened?
I must have been babbling incoherently. Howard didn't seem to understand a single thing I was saying. Zirinsky, I managed to stammer.
Who the hell is Zirinsky?
Howard asked. Later, they told me that Herbert had suffered a massive heart attack. Given his physique, it made medical sense. Everything else seemed perfectly normal, with no trace of the chaos that Zirinsky and I had faced the previous night. There are no records of Benjamin Zirinsky or Patrick Davis. Both have been erased from existence. Most terrifyingly, all traces of their existence were completely gone. Zirinsky's office had a nameplate with another doctor's name on it. Patient records, prescriptions, notes he had written, everything was in a different handwriting. When I asked Harold in cell 144, he said,
I don't know any doctor named Zirinsky.
Cell 89 was still occasionally quarantined, and the basement patients were still standing, but no one understood why I knew so much about them. Davis's last words described me as a crucial piece of a puzzle, but I don't know how long I'll have to wait to find out what that means. I want to investigate Zirinsky's disappearance, but I don't even know where to begin. His office holds no evidence either. I'm much further back than I started, but I've promised myself I won't give up until I find him again. At least I hope he found his wife, but I don't trust Davis to keep his promises. As Davis said, I need to wait very patiently, but while waiting, I've noticed a change in myself. My sense of time has become acute. I can tell the exact time without looking at a clock, and sometimes I get fragmented visions of the future. As 6:10 p.m. approaches, my body automatically reacts. I start preparing to go home. On Thursday mornings, my feet stop when I try to approach cell block D. I have become a guardian of the rules. Now you know the rules of Silverwood's penitentiary, that there is a place where time bends, that you must not stay past 6:10 p.m., that you must not approach cell block D on a Thursday, that cell 89 quarantines itself by its own will, that unconscious people continue to stand in the basement, and most importantly, that if you break the rules to save a loved one, you too are destined to be erased. These rules now reside within you too. Even if you try to forget, you'll remember when you wake up in the middle of the night, when you glance at the clock, or when you hear footsteps down the corridor, because the rules are alive. They pass from person to person, continuing to bind those who know them. From the moment you finished reading this story, you too are bound by the rules. Tonight, look out your window at 2:47 a.m. Perhaps you'll see shadows in the distance. If you do, it means you've become part of the story. I am still working at Silverwood's Penitentiary, searching for Zorinsky's traces, trying to understand the meaning of Davis's prophecy, watching the shadows that appear beneath my window every night at 2:47 a.m. They said I was part of something important. But what is that important something? Someday, I'll know the answer too. And when that time comes, I'll send you a warning. Because now that you know the rules, you can no longer be outside this story. Remember this. Once you know the rules, the day will come when you too will be forced to make a choice. What will you choose then? Will you choose safety and abandon them? Or will you break the rules to save a loved one? Zorinsky chose love, and he found his wife. But at the cost of being erased from this world, I chose safety. And now I live, bound by the rules forever. I don't know which was the right choice. Until that day, be patient.